The mountain hut stood alone in the deep forest. Snow kept falling from the dark sky, and the storm howled like a wild beast. Inside the hut, the fire was weak, almost dying, and the man pushed the wood closer, hoping to keep the warmth alive. He thought it would be another lonely night, a night of silence, a night of waiting for the storm to pass. But then, something strange happened. The door shook, as if someone had touched it. At first he believed it was only the wind, only the storm pressing against the wood. But the second sound was different, soft, almost like a hand scratching at the door. He stood up, his heart beating faster. No one should be here, not in this weather, not in this part of the mountains. He reached for the axe hanging near the door, slowly pulled it down, and waited. The scratching came again, weaker, desperate, like something begging for help. With a slow breath, he opened the door. Snow rushed inside, cold and sharp like knives. And there she was, kneeling on the ground, half buried in white snow. A woman, but not like any woman he had ever seen before. Her skin was pale but glowing, almost blue in the stormlight. Her eyes burned with strange silver fire. Her clothes were torn, made of green and gold fabric that looked too fine for this world. Chains hung from her wrists, broken but still heavy. Her hair was wet, long and black, falling around her face like dark rivers. She looked up at him, her lips trembling, her breath fast and weak. For a moment he could not move, could not speak. She looked too unreal, too otherworldly, like something from a dream or a nightmare. "Please," she whispered, her voice rough and shaking. Her body trembled as she tried to crawl forward. He dropped the axe to the floor without even thinking. He reached for her arms, pulling her inside before the storm buried her alive. Inside the hut, he laid her knee. The fire, her skin was cold like ice, yet it glowed faintly in the firelight. She curled close to the warmth, but her eyes never left him. They were full of fear, sharp fear, as if she thought he might harm her too. He spoke softly, "You are safe here." But she did not answer. She only looked at him with those glowing eyes. Her breathing slowed, but her hands clutched the broken chains, refusing to let them go. The man gave her water, then a piece of bread. She touched it like it was something unknown, then ate it fast, desperate, hungry. He wondered how long she had been wandering in the snow. He wondered who had left her chained and broken in the storm. For a long time there was only silence. The fire cracked, the storm screamed outside, and she sat there, shivering, her gaze moving between the fire and him. Her lips opened at last, and she whispered, "They will come." The man frowned. "Who will come?" She lowered her eyes, fear in her every move. Her hands shook as she pointed toward the door, toward the mountains. "Hunters," she whispered. "They will not stop. They will find me." The man felt a coldness that was not from the storm. Who was she, and why was she hunted? He looked at her glowing skin, her broken chains, the way her clothes seemed made from another world, and he knew deep inside she was not from here, not from Earth. His thoughts were broken by a sound that did not belong to the storm. Outside, footsteps, heavy, slow, pressing against the snow. The woman's eyes widened, her whole body stiff with terror. "They are here," she whispered, her voice so soft it was almost lost in the fire's crackle. The man stood, his axe back in his hand. The hut felt smaller, the air heavier. Outside, shadows moved in the snow, too tall, too strange to be men. The storm howled louder, covering their approach. The woman curled closer to the fire, her silver eyes never blinking. The man's heart pounded as the shadows drew nearer. The night had changed. He was no longer alone, and the stranger in the snow had brought danger that was not of this world. The storm still roared outside the hut, but inside, the silence was heavier than the snow itself. The man stood near the door, axe in hand, listening to the strange footsteps outside. The woman sat near the fire, her eyes wide with fear, her broken chains shining in the firelight. The shadows moved past the window, tall and dark. Strange voices whispered in a language he could not understand. The woman pulled her knees close, hiding her face, shaking as if the voices were knives cutting through her. The man's heart raced, every muscle ready to fight. Minutes passed, then the shadows drifted away into the storm. The sounds grew weaker until only the wind and snow remained, but the woman did not relax, her breath still sharp, her eyes still glowing with terror. "They will come back," she whispered. "They never stop." The man knelt beside her, his voice calm though his hands shook. "Who are they?" he asked. "Why do they want you?" She turned her head slowly, her chains rattling with the movement. "They call themselves hunters," she said, her voice thin like broken glass. "They take what they want. They take who they want. They took me." Her words trembled in the air. The man studied the broken cuffs on her wrists, the strange golden metal too fine and too strong for human work. He touched one with his fingers, feeling its cold, unnatural surface. It was clear she had been prisoner, bound by hands not of this earth. I escaped, sacked, he whispered, but chains leave scars that cannot be seen. Her eyes filled with water, but no tears fell, as if her body no longer knew how to cry. She looked at him, searching his face, testing if he was another master or truly free. The man only shook his head and pushed a blanket toward her. "You are safe here," he said again, though inside he wondered if it was a lie. The fire cracked, throwing sparks across the floor. The storm raged, hiding the hunters for now. But inside the hut, two strangers sat, one human and one not. And something fragile, like trust, began to grow between them. She touched the bread he gave her again, holding it gently this time, as if she wanted to remember the feeling of kindness. Her voice was softer now, almost curious. "Why did you not give me to them?" she asked. "You risk your life for me, but you do not know me." The man thought for a moment, staring into the fire. He lived alone, far from people, far from voices, far from warmth. But tonight he felt something he had not felt in years, another life depending on him, a reason beyond survival. "I could not leave you in the snow," he said simply. "No one deserves chains." She lowered her head, as if ashamed of her weakness. Her hands touched the golden cuffs again, and she whispered, "Chains follow me, even when broken." The man wanted to ask more, to understand where she came from, who she was, but before he could, a sound struck the door, loud, heavy, like a fist of iron. Both of them froze. The sound came again, shaking the wood. Her silver eyes turned to him, filled with terror. "They found us," she gasped. "The hunters." The man gripped his axe tighter, his blood hot with fear. He moved toward the door, heart pounding, each step heavy. The woman grabbed his arm, her touch cold and strong. "No," she begged. "If they see you, they will kill you too." The banging grew louder, echoing through the hut. Voices called in that strange language, sharp and cruel. Snow fell harder, the storm wrapping the hut in white silence, but nothing could hide the danger outside. The woman whispered something in her language, words heavy with sorrow. Then she looked at him again, her voice trembling. "If you stay with me, you will never be free again." Her chains rattled as she moved closer, her face pale, her eyes desperate. "They will hunt you as they hunt me. Is this what you want?" The man looked at her, at the scars on her wrists, at the glow of her alien skin. He thought of his life, empty nights, cold winters, silence with no end, and he realized he could not turn away now, even if danger waited outside, even if death was close. "I will not give you to them," he said. "Not now, not ever." Her eyes widened, as if she had never heard such words before. For the first time, she did not look like prey. For the first time, she looked almost human, almost free. But outside, the banging turned into scratching, claws tearing at the wood, and the man knew the night was not yet done. The storm screamed, the fire shook, and the chains of fear bound them both. The night grew heavier, the storm pressed against the hut, shaking the wooden walls. But the sound outside was not the storm anymore. It was the sound of claws, of footsteps, of hunters closing in. The woman pressed her back against the wall, her chains rattling softly. Her silver eyes glowed with fear, watching the door as if it were her grave. The man stood tall, axe in his hand, though his hands trembled. He had hunted wolves and bears before, but this was no wolf, no bear. These were beings from another world. The scratching on the wood grew louder. A heavy voice spoke outside, deep and strange. He could not understand the words, but he felt the anger in them. The woman whispered, her voice shaking. "They are calling for me. They want me to come out." The man glanced at her. "Will they leave if you do?" he asked. Her head shook quickly, her hair falling across her face. "No," she said. "They will kill you, then take me. They always kill those who help." The man's blood burned. He had chosen already. He would not give her up. But the danger pressed closer, and the wooden door would not hold forever. He pulled her toward the corner, whispering, "Stay quiet. Stay hidden." The voices outside grew into a chant. Then the door shook as if struck by a hammer. Snow burst through the cracks. The hut shivered. The woman gasped, clutching the broken cuffs on her wrists. Her body curled tight like a child. The man raised his axe, every muscle ready. He thought the door would break, but then silence fell. The voices stopped. The scratching ended. Only the storm remained. The silence was worse than the noise. The woman's breath caught in her throat. "They are still here," she whispered. "They are waiting." The man moved to the small window. He peeked through the frost, his eyes searching the storm, and he saw them. 3 tall shapes in the snow, their bodies wrapped in dark armor, glowing lines running across their skin like fire. Their heads covered with masks that gleamed in the moonlight. Each held a weapon that pulsed with red light. They were not men, not soldiers of Earth. They were hunters of another kind. The tallest one turned its head toward the hut. The silver mask reflected the firelight inside. The man dropped down quickly, his heart pounding like thunder. "They know," he whispered. "They can see us." The woman crawled closer, her eyes wide with despair. "They never lose the trail," she said. "Once they mark you, they come again and again until nothing is left." Her voice was thin, breaking, as if the words themselves carried pain. The man wanted to ask how she escaped them before, but the truth was clear in her scars, in her chains, in her trembling. She had not escaped on her own. She had only delayed her capture. A sudden flash of red cut through the storm. The hunters fired a beam into the sky. The light cracked like lightning, burning against the clouds. The woman gasped, pressing her hands over her ears. "They are calling the ship," she cried. "We must go now." The man grabbed her arm, pulling her up. The axe hung in his other hand. "Follow me," he said. He pushed open the back window, snow rushing in, freezing and sharp. Together they crawled out into the storm, the night swallowing them whole. The forest was dark, branches heavy with snow. Every step was hard, the snow deep, the wind wild. The man pulled her forward, guiding her through paths only he knew. Behind them, the hunters moved fast, their glowing weapons shining in the night. The chase had begun. The woman stumbled, her body weak from cold and chains. He held her up, refusing to let her fall. Her glowing skin lit the snow faintly. He almost wished she could hide her light, but it was part of her, and it made her both beautiful and hunted. They reached a frozen river. The ice cracked under their weight, groaning like an old beast. The man helped her across, his heart hammering with each step. Behind them, the hunters reached the riverbank, their red lights cutting through the darkness. The woman turned her face to him, her voice breaking. "If you leave me, you can live. They want only me." The man shook his head, his breath steaming in the cold air. "You are not alone anymore," he said. He tightened his grip on her arm, pulling her across the ice. The hunters stepped onto the river, their weight shaking the frozen surface. Cracks split the ice, water roared beneath. The man looked back, saw the glowing masks, the weapons ready to strike. He pulled her faster, his boots slipping on the glassy surface. The storm screamed, the ice screamed, and then a thunderous crack split the night. The river broke, the hammam. Hunters fell through, their armored bodies crashing into the freezing water. But one remained, the tallest one, standing on the edge of the broken ice. Its mask turned toward them, glowing red eyes burning like fire. The man and the woman reached the far bank, stumbling into the trees. But the hunter's voice followed them, deep and cruel. It shouted in that alien tongue, a promise of death, a promise of capture. The forest swallowed their bodies, the snow covered their tracks, but the man knew it was not over. The hunters had arrived, and they would never stop. The forest was silent except for the storm. Snow whipped across the trees, covering tracks, hiding breath. The man pulled the woman forward, her body weak, but her eyes wide with fear. Behind them, the hunters still searched, their glowing lights flashing between the shadows. The frozen river lay broken, dark water swirling where 2 hunters had fallen. But the tallest one had survived, its mask burning red as it climbed onto the bank. It raised its weapon, scanning the forest, the sound of its voice carrying like thunder. The woman shivered, whispering, "He will not stop. He will follow us until the end." The man guided her deeper into the woods. His boots sank into snow, his breath sharp in the freezing air. Branches scratched his face, the storm cut into his skin, but he did not stop. He could not stop. Her chains rattled softly as she ran, golden cuffs shining faintly even in the darkness. The woman stumbled, her knees weak. He caught her before she fell, pulling her close. Her eyes met his, glowing silver in the night. "You should leave me," she whispered. "I will only bring death to you." But the man shook his head, his jaw set firm. "I will not leave you," he said. "Not while I breathe." They reached a ridge of rocks, sharp and steep. The man pushed her upward, climbing behind her, his axe strapped to Ross's back. From the top, he looked back and saw red lights weaving through the trees. The hunters were spreading out, moving like wolves surrounding their prey. The woman's breath shook. "They call the ship," she whispered. "Soon it will come." The man frowned, confused, but then the sky answered her words. A low hum filled the air, deep and heavy. Above the clouds, a faint light glowed, growing brighter, wider. The man's chest tightened as he realized it was no star. It was something vast, something alive with power. The alien ship slid through the storm, Its shadow swallowed the forest, its light scanning the ground. Beams of red light swept across the snow like burning eyes. The woman pressed herself against the rocks, trembling. Her voice cracked as she said, "If they take me back, I will never see freedom again." The man wrapped his arm around her, holding her close. "We will not let them," he said, though he felt the fear clawing at his heart. The ship moved above them, its sound shaking the trees. Snow fell in heavy waves, branches snapped under the pressure. The hunters howled below, answering their master. The man led her along the ridge, through narrow paths only he knew. The rocks cut into his hands, the snow stung his eyes. But he pushed forward, step by step. The woman stumbled again, her chains dragging in the snow. He lifted her, carrying her across the sharp stones. Her body was light, fragile, yet her presence felt heavy with fate. A beam of red light swept past them, burning into the snow where they had stood seconds before. The ground hissed, steam rising in the storm. The man pulled her into a small cave hidden by rocks, both of them crouched inside, their breaths shallow. The beam passed again, searching, hunting, but the cave held them in shadow, hiding their light. The woman leaned against the wall, her chest rising and falling, her voice trembled. "You do not understand. They do not hunt me only. They hunt what I carry." The man's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" She touched her chest, her fingers brushing the torn fabric, her eyes burned silver, brighter than ever. "There is something inside me, something they fear, something they want to control." The man's heart pounded harder. She was not only a prisoner, not only a victim, she was something greater, something dangerous. But before he could ask more, a new sound shook the cave. The rocks trembled, dust falling from above. The hunters had reached the ridge, their voices echoing against the storm. The woman clutched his arm, her voice sharp. "They will find us, we must move." The man nodded, gripping his axe again. He led her through a narrow tunnel at the back of the cave. The path was tight, filled with ice, but it led to the other side of the ridge. They emerged into another forest. The ship still hovered above, its red eyes searching, but for a moment the storm thickened, the snow falling so heavy it cloaked the land. The man seized the chance, pulling her deeper into the white. Her chains rattled, her breath shook, but she followed. For the first time, she did not look only afraid. For the first time, her eyes showed a spark of hope. The storm screamed, the hunters roared, and the ship spread its shadow across the mountains. But the man and the woman kept moving, through ice, through fear, through the night. The escape had only begun. The storm had weakened by morning. Snow still covered the mountains, but the sky was gray instead of black. The man led the woman back to his hut, the only shelter he knew. They had run all night, hiding between trees, moving when the beams of red light shifted away. The hut stood silent, half buried in snow. It looked small, weak, like a toy waiting to be broken. The man stopped, his axe still in his hand. He did not trust the silence, not after what had happened. He pushed the door slowly, the wood creaking. Inside, the fire had died, the air cold and sharp. At first, everything looked the same, but then he noticed small marks in the floor, metallic lines like scratches. The woman gasped softly, her silver eyes wide. "They were here," she whispered. "They searched while we fled." The man knelt down, touching the strange marks. It was not from boots, not from claws. Something else had been placed there, something hidden. He lifted the wooden board and froze. Beneath the floor, a piece of metal glowed faintly. It was smooth, strange, not human work. The woman's chains rattled as she stepped back, shaking her head. "They planted trackers," she said. "They will always find us, even in storms." The man pulled the device out, throwing it into the fire pit. The metal hissed, glowing brighter before it cracked. A burst of smoke filled the hut, then silence. For a moment, they both stood still, listening. The forest outside groaned, but no hunters came yet. The woman sank down near the fire pit, her hands clutching the broken cuffs on her wrists. Her voice was soft, weak. "They will never stop, not while I live." The man sat across from her, his eyes fixed on her face. "You keep saying that," he said. "Why do they want you so much?" She closed her eyes, her lips trembling. For a moment she looked as if she could not speak. Then she lifted her hand, and the truth revealed itself. Her skin glowed, brighter than before. Silver light spread across her veins, shining through her arm like rivers of fire. The man's eyes widened, the axe slipping slightly in his hand. He had seen strange things in storms, but never this, the woman whispered. "I was made to carry this." Her voice shook, yet her words carried weight. "They call it the seed. It lives in me, a power that heals, a power that destroys." She pressed her glowing hand against her chest. They want to use me, to bend my body, to use the seed as a weapon. The man's breath caught. The glow lit her face, making her look both beautiful and tragic. You heal with it, he asked softly. She nodded. Yes, but it costs me strength. Each time I heal, I grow weaker. And they forced me to use it until I almost broke. Her voice cracked, the silver glow dimming. The man felt a weight in his chest. This woman was not only hunted, she was enslaved. Her chains were not just metal, they were pain, memory, and fear. He reached across the fire pit, taking her wrist gently. The glow touched his skin, warm, alive. For a moment he felt a strange peace, as if her light whispered to his blood. You are not alone now, he said, his voice steady. Her eyes met his, and for the first time, she did not look afraid. But peace never lasted long. A sound outside shook the air, a low hum rising through the forest. The woman stiffened, her eyes wide. The ship, she whispered. It circles again. The man grabbed his axe, standing quickly. He moved to the window, his heart hammering. Through the gray sky, a shadow passed, vast and endless. The hunters were searching. The ship was scanning again. The woman pressed her glowing hand against the wall, her breath heavy, her voice trembled. They will find us, no matter where we run. The man turned to her, his face hard with decision. Then we stop running, he said. She stared at him, her lips parting in shock. No, she whispered. You cannot fight them. They are many, they are stronger. But the man's eyes burned with fire. I will fight for you, he said. Even if I die, I will not let them take you again. Her breath caught, her silver eyes filling with something new. Not fear, not despair, but a fragile spark of hope. The chains on her wrists rattled as she reached toward him. Her hand glowed faintly as it brushed against his chest. You are strange, she whispered. Strange and stubborn, but maybe stronger than you know. The ship's shadow darkened the hut. The beams of red light swept across the forest. The hunters were close again. The man gripped his axe tighter. The woman's glow faded as she pulled the blanket around her, and together they waited. 2 lives tied by fate, hiding from an enemy that never stopped. The storm outside was gone, but the storm of war had only begun. The forest lay quiet, but the quiet was a lie. The man and the woman stayed low in the hut, waiting for the ship to pass. The fire burned low, shadows crawling along the wooden walls. The woman's silver eyes flickered with fear, her chains rattling softly whenever she moved. The man stood by the window, axe in hand. Through the frost, he saw the beams of red light sweeping over the trees. The hunters were close, their voices sharp, echoing against the snow. Every sound cut into the night like a blade. They planted trackers, the woman whispered, her voice shaking. Her fingers brushed the wooden boards again, searching. The man frowned, kneeling to check, and there, hidden under the floor, another device glowed faintly. He cursed under his breath, pulling it free. The woman's face turned pale. They marked us again. They never left. He smashed the device against the floor, sparks flying, but it was too late. The beams of red outside turned toward the hut. The shadows grew larger, footsteps heavy in the snow. The hunters had found them. The woman clutched his arm, her body trembling, her voice cracked. We must run. We cannot stay here. But the man shook his head, his jaw tight. This is my home, he said. I will not let them take it without a fight. The door shook violently, claws scratch. In the wood, the man raised his axe, his breath heavy. The woman curled close to the fire, her glowing skin lighting the room faintly, her silver eyes locked on the door, waiting for it to break. Then it happened. The wood shattered inward, snow burst into the hut. 3 hunters stormed inside, their tall bodies filling the space. Red lines glowed across their armor, their weapons humming with power. The man swung his axe, the blade striking the first hunter's arm. The alien roared, stumbling back as sparks flew. The second hunter lunged, striking him across the chest. The man fell, pain shooting through his ribs, but he forced himself up, swinging again, his axe buried into the creature's mask, cracking it open. Dark liquid sprayed across the floor. The hunter fell with a heavy thud. The woman cried out, reaching for him, but the third hunter rushed forward, grabbing her chains. She screamed, her body glowing bright as silver fire spread across her skin. The glow burned the hunter's hand, forcing it to release her. She stumbled back, her breath sharp, her eyes wild with fear and anger. The man fought the second hunter, his body weak but his spirit burning. The axe cut through the alien's arm, tearing metal and flesh. The creature roared and collapsed, its weapon falling useless to the floor. But before he could breathe, the tallest hunter stepped into the doorway. Its mask glowed brighter than the others, its voice deep and cold. The woman froze, whispering, The leader. The man raised his axe, but the leader was faster. A red beam shot from its weapon, striking the ground. The floorboards exploded. The hut shook violently. The man and woman fell to the ground, the fire scattering into smoke and ash. The leader stepped closer, its mask reflecting the silver glow of the woman's skin. Its voice rolled like thunder, speaking in a language the man could not understand. But the woman understood, and her eyes filled with despair. "They want to take me back," she whispered. "They will kill you if you stand in their way." The man struggled to rise, his axe heavy in his hands. Blood dripped from his side, pain spreading through his body. But his eyes never left the hunters, never left her. "I will not let them take you," he said, his voice sharp even in pain. The leader struck him hard, the blow sending him crashing into the wall. His axe fell to the ground, wood splintered around him. The woman screamed his name, though she did not know it well. She reached for him, but the hunters grabbed her chains again. This time, the glow of her skin could not save her. The leader's grip was stronger, colder, like iron forged in fire. She fought, her hands striking, her body glowing brighter. But the hunters held her tight, dragging her toward the door. Her silver eyes locked on the man, tears she had never shed before burning in them. Her voice broke as she cried, "Do not let them take me, please." The man crawled across the floor, his body screaming with pain. His fingers touched the handle of his axe, but the leader turned and fired again. The beam struck his chest, not to kill but to break. Darkness swam in his vision, his strength fading. The last thing he saw was her face, the chains pulling her away, her eyes desperate, filled with sorrow and hope. The hunters dragged her out into the snow. The ship's shadow covered the hut, its red lights burning through the storm. The man's body lay broken on the floor, but his hand still clutched the axe, refusing to let go even in defeat. The night was quiet again, but the quiet was cruel, for she was gone, taken into the dark, and the man's heart burned with fire. The fight was not over. It had only just begun. The hut lay broken, the fire dead. The man's chest burned with pain, his body weak, but his eyes opened again, filled with fire. The hunters had taken her, the woman with silver eyes, and he could not let it end here. He pushed himself up. Blood dripping into the snow, his axe still in his hand, heavy but alive with purpose. Outside, the night shook with the sound of engines. The alien ship hovered above the mountains, its shadow covering the forest. Its beams of red light searched the land, calling its servants home. The man stumbled through the snow, every step sharp with pain. But he followed the tracks, deep prints left by the hunters. The storm was gone, the sky clear, the ship glowed above like a burning moon, and there in the distance he saw them, the hunters dragging her chains, pulling her toward the ship. Her body resisted, her glow flickering weakly. Her eyes searched the night, desperate, until they found him. For a heartbeat, hope burned between them. Then the hunters struck her, forcing her forward. The man gripped his axe tighter, his breath steaming in the cold. "This ends tonight," he whispered. The hunters reached the ship's platform. A ramp of light stretched from the ground into the sky. The woman screamed as they pulled her upward, her chains rattled, her voice breaking. "No, let me go, please." The man charged forward, his legs heavy but his heart unstoppable. The hunters turned, their weapons glowing red, but he swung his axe with fury. The blade tore through armor, sparks flying. One hunter fell, another staggered back, roaring. The leader stepped down the ramp, its mask glowing brighter than ever. Its voice thundered, speaking words that shook the air. The man did not understand the language, but he understood the meaning. It was a warning, a promise of death. The woman cried out, her silver eyes burning. "Run," she begged. "You cannot fight them all." But the man shook his head. "I do not run," he said. "Not from them, not from fate." The leader struck, its weapon flashing. The man rolled aside, the beam cutting through the snow. He swung his axe upward, the blade crashing against the alien's mask. The mask cracked, sparks bursting. The leader roared, striking him back. But the man stood again, his body refusing to fall. The hunters closed in, surrounding him. The woman's glow grew brighter, her chains burning red from her light. Her voice broke the night. "Enough," she screamed. "You will not take me again." Her body shone like silver fire, the seed inside her answering her call. The hunters stumbled, shielding their eyes. The man felt her light wash over him, warm and fierce. It healed the cuts on his skin, eased the fire in his chest. Her power gave him strength. With a roar, he swung his axe in a wide arc. 2 hunters fell, their armor splitting like broken stone. The leader lunged again, its mask cracked, its weapon blazing. The man met it head-on, axe against blade. The clash shook the air, sparks flying into the snow. The woman's chains shattered in her glow, pieces falling into the snow. She stood free for the first time, her body trembling but her eyes fierce. She raised her hands, silver light spreading like fire. The ship above groaned, its lights flickering. The hunters screamed as the light burned through their armor. The leader staggered, its mask splitting apart, revealing dark skin. It fell to its knees, roaring in rage. The man raised his axe high. With one strike, he brought it down. The leader fell, the red glow fading from its weapon. Silence filled the mountain, broken only by the hum of the ship. The woman's glow dimmed, her body swaying. The man caught her in his arms, holding her close, her sigh. All of her eyes looked into his, filled with exhaustion, but also freedom. "You should not have done this," she whispered, her voice weak. He shook his head, his grip firm. "I could not let them take you," he said. The ship trembled above, its lights faltering. Without its leader, it drifted, groaning like a dying beast. The woman raised her hand one last time, silver fire burning. The ship cracked, metal splitting. With a roar it fell, crashing into the far mountains, fire rising into the sky. Silence returned, the storm gone. The hunters were no more. The ship destroyed. The man and the woman stood together in the snow, her chains broken, his heart burning. They were free, but freedom came with a price. She leaned against him, her voice soft. "You do not know what you have done," she whispered. "You have claimed me, and with me, you have claimed war." The man looked at the fire in the sky, then at her silver eyes. He nodded, his voice steady. "Then I will fight beside you." The woman's lips trembled into the smallest smile, her silver eyes softened, no longer filled with fear. Together they stood in the snow, one human, one alien, bound by choice, not chains. The first step of a war that had only begun.